What if I told you a Pac-12 coach just totally ripped his conference this week and ripped their TV partners, and it didn't even make so much as a ripple across the college football landscape? I'm not making it up. It actually happened. David Shaw, who is the head coach at Stanford, did an interview with The Athletic. We're going to show you a quote in just a second from, well, several quotes from this interview, but he was very animated. It was very un-David Shaw-like, I guess is the best way to put it. I mean, you picture David Shaw, and he's got kind of he's got the opposite of what the kids would call RBF. He's got a resting smile. It's just, that's kind of the way David Shaw always looks. I don't think he's ever yelled in his life. Well, he did this week. And so here's the context before we get to the quotes. Stanford is opening the season against Kansas State. They are going to play the game in Dallas. I'll go down the TV rabbit hole in just a second for you, but the context is they got to play that game at noon Eastern. Not a big deal if you live in Manassas, Virginia. They don't. They're out in the Bay Area in California. And so I had our stats and info department run the numbers. And if you subtract 3 hours from noon, you get 9 a.m. Yes? Yeah, 9 a.m. And that's tough to play a football game at 9 a.m., and they're going to have to do it. So with that in mind, let's take a look at what David Shaw had to say to The Athletic. Again, I want to stress this was not our interview. The Athletic had this interview this week. And this is what David Shaw had to say. So he's talking to, I believe it was Stuart Mandel, and he says, I'm pissed at Fox for our kickoff time against Kansas State. For Stanford in particular and Oregon to be going in a different time zone and give us an early kickoff, to me, it's incredibly disrespectful. It shows a lack of understanding of what we have to do. And the way that different time zones truly affect us. It shows a lack of care for our student athletes. That, to me, is something that is egregious, love that word, and I don't care who I piss off, but I think they're wrong, and a lot of our people in our conference are upset too. He continues, they, being Fox, they can say whatever they want to. I don't want to hear blank about, oh, it's great for ratings. I don't care about ratings. This is either complete disregard or lack of understanding about how difficult it is to be a West Coast team and travel east and get forced to play an early kickoff game. So, I'll tell you, I was at the gym just a little while ago and I never fully stopped sweating. So, I got to fan myself for a second after that. Have you ever heard David Shaw talk like that? I don't know of anyone else out there I've heard talk like that. I mean, we got a lot of Pac-12 folks who watch the show. I just got to fan myself. I'm taken aback. I couldn't believe I read that. Out of all the coaches out there, if you were to take smart money on who was going to give that, if Cristobal was talking like that, I could see that, man. Cristobal's a fiery guy. It was David Shaw. David Shaw is a guy that, you know, if I had to go into therapy, I'd want him to be sitting right there in the table when I'm on the couch, because I think David Shaw could talk me off the ledge. Instead, dude, David Shaw's he's the aggressor all of a sudden on the West Coast. So what is this all about? Let's dive into this. Here's the deal. Pac-12 coaches get it. Pac-12 coaches aren't idiots. Their football product out there as a whole has been inferior for a little while. The interest level, as a result, is down. That affects everything across the board. Again, they're not stupid. They get what the deal is. They want to change it, but they get what the deal is. The recruiting has been affected. You got a lot of kids leaving the West Coast that they think should be staying home, but there's not a good enough reason to keep them home. Better on-field results, better football. That's the only fix. The thing about a guy like David Shaw or Mario Cristobal or Herm Edwards or the like is they believe if they could snap their fingers and start today on equal footing, they could fix the problem. Their biggest fear is their conference has dug such a collective hole out there that it's impossible, even at their best, to climb out of it. Now, I want you to put yourself in that position, and then I want you to imagine they say, oh, by the way, start games at 9 a.m., your time. We talked about this on this show 2 years ago. At the time, I wasn't even at 24/7. We were down in a studio in Columbus, Georgia, and out of all the people on planet Earth to be talking about Pac-12 football TV deals, we seemed the least equipped. But you could see this coming 2 years ago. In 2018, I guess is when they inked the deal, Fox announced what is called, what do they call it? The Big Noon Package. I thought it was a great idea and a terrible idea. I knew it was going to be a winner for television purposes, because I thought the noon window had started to be underutilized, and it had been that way for several years. It used to be all the big games were at noon and 3:30. You guys know this if you've watched the sport for any length of time. But then college football started shifting its prime games to prime time. And so then it became very enviable to be playing games in prime time. Well, nowadays, A bulk of the games are played in prime time. I mean, Mississippi State and Arkansas playing in prime time, that never would have been a 7 o'clock or 7:30 kickoff this time, 2 decades ago, but it is now. Well, Fox looked at it and said, how do we distinguish ourselves? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take our A game and we're going to put it at noon Eastern. Now, if you're a Wisconsin football fan, you don't love playing at 11 a.m., but you kind of get it. Ohio State and Michigan, Texas, Oklahoma, those games have been at 11 a.m. Local time, for them, it's noon Eastern. We all work off the Eastern time zone for TV purposes, as evil as you think that ideology may be. Well, if you're on the West Coast, this doesn't fly for you. Doesn't fly at all. So it was going to be great for TV, we called it, and it was going to be terrible for teams. We called that. 5 out of the top 10 games, ratings-wise, in 2019 were those noon games. No one's looking to change this formula. For everyone who tells you ratings are falling off a cliff and they use 2020 as their convenient straw man, tell them to hit the rewind button one more year and go back and look at 2019 when numbers were up across the board, literally across the board. So yeah, sports dying. Listen to it, just gasping over here. Why is David Shaw the angriest guy in the room? That's really what he wants to know. I guarantee you, David Shaw spoke his mind, and he's established enough where he felt comfortable enough doing it. But David Shaw probably spoke his mind, and in the back of his mind thought, why am I the one doing this? Like, out of all the folks who are going to just yell out here like an angry old man, why am I the one doing it? Why is everyone not in unison about this? Because I guarantee you, David Shaw's not lying to you when he says there are a lot of people out here aggravated about it. Of course there are. Of course there are. The problem is, and this is where it gets into the weeds for TV, and this is where you can't really do anything about it if you're David Shaw, and that's what has you upset. The problem is this whole West Coast teams having to play 9 a.m. local time kickoffs, it's college football's version of the NFL's Thursday night football problem. Like football teams, to you and I, are just that. They are football teams full of players and support staff and strength and conditioning, nutrition, head coach, coordinators, etc. I mean, that's what college football is to us. To a TV executive, college football is just inventory. Your quarterback and your wide receiver, they might as well be actors and actresses for all those folks care. A TV executive who would probably dislocate his jaw trying to buckle a chin strap looks at the Stanford Cardinal and says, you're a TV product. We got shelves over here, and you are part of the inventory we're putting on those shelves. And when you play Kansas State, I couldn't care less if you play it in a parking lot at 9 p.m. or in Dallas, Texas at noon Eastern time. I just need you on the field because that's how we make money. Does that make you feel like you need to take a shower after you hear it? Yeah, me too. But that's the way it is. I don't care about your travel. I don't care about your hydration, your body clock, your sleep patterns. None of that really matters. And so you could be one of two ways here. You could either look at it and say, well, they signed a $250 million collective deal a few years ago, and therefore that gives these TV networks every contractual right to do this. And the $250 million, that's very healthy for the conference overall. And on the surface, I can't argue with that. But again, would we collectively say Pac-12 football has gotten better or worse over the last few years? I don't think that there is the biggest Pac-12 homer on the face of the planet that would argue better. And so long term, what's best for the health of the conference? Here's the unfortunate part. The part of the country in terms of college football that's struggling the most, therefore featuring the least leverage when they enter these TV negotiations, is also the conference and the portion of the country that is the worst positioned from a TV standpoint. It's always been this way. I grew up an Atlanta Braves fan, and I remember when we would go play LA or San Diego or San Francisco, I thought to myself, it's insane that they make us stay up to 10 o'clock. It's past my bedtime. I didn't even get to watch Braves games on the West Coast when I was a kid because first pitch wasn't until 10:10 in the TBS days or 10:40. And so I remember thinking, I feel like a victim. There's no way I should have to deal with this. Then someone explained to me one day, well, here's the thing. You know when LA's in town and they play a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the Friday game's at 7 o'clock, that's a 4 o'clock first pitch for them on Friday. No one's even off work yet. And on Saturday, when you got the 1:10 game on Fox, guess what? They're eating bacon and eggs out there and watching it because it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. And then when you got the Sunday getaway, then it's 12 o'clock first pitch or whatever the case may be, they're playing that thing at 9 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. And then I didn't feel like such a victim anymore. So the West Coast folks, sports fans at least, have always dealt with this. I know that there is another train of thought here. A lot of you may have listened to David Shaw whine and complain, and that's exactly what you think it is, whining and complaining. You may tell him, just deal with it. You know, you're not a volunteer. You are getting paid millions of dollars. Guys are getting free education, blah, blah, blah. It's a first world problem. All that's true. Yes, it's true. But, you know, when we calibrate for the fact that, you know, we all understand we're playing college football here, it is a tough situation for Pac-12 teams to be in. And again, this would be a tough situation if you were the best college football conference in America. They're dragging behind significantly. So not only are they being asked to compete, they're asking to make up ground, and they're being put behind the eight ball in a lot of ways trying to do it.